Hey there you, and welcome to a gigantic Orky horde that's about to take on a Blood Ravens chapter supported by a few conscripts. As both armies fight over this hotly contested river, will the Blood Ravens be able to smash the Orky horde, or will the green tide keep spreading wide in this ultimate head-to-head battle? But before we do kick off today's fight, firstly I want to say thank you very much for clicking on the video in the first place, and if you do find yourself coming here often, why not subscribe? You're already coming back to the channel. And while you're here, go ahead and check out the ChaoticPinky store. We got some amazing merch in there. But with all that being said, let's kick off today's battle. Right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. This is going to be a tough old fight for both sides here now. The Orcs primarily are going to have a struggle because they initially are going to have to try and get across this river without taking stupendous amounts of losses. But you can already see, look at this, we've got Dreadnought and a couple of Assault Marines meeting him directly on the head here of the river. Not letting them cross at all. The Orcs here trying to pour reinforcements across as quickly as they can, but they really need to establish that foothold early. But Space Marines and their Ceramite armor here standing firm, the bulwark against humanity here. Or for humanity, not against. God, that'd be awful. The Emperor's Legion's alternate traitor. Orcs, though, having found a little way across on the other side here, are starting to outflank Imperial positions almost immediately. Conscripts have been flung into the mix here to hopefully keep the Orcs from advancing up on the Space Marines flank. Now, they have got some decent support here in terms of bolter fire coming from the Blood Ravens, but will that be enough to keep that flank at bay? Meanwhile, more and more Orcs tried to push across the ravine here, but Space Marines are actually taking the fight to the Orcs. The river quickly turning blood red here, as blood is shed from both sides, though it's got to be said, definitely more coming from the Orcs at the moment as they reach the heights of 60,000 losses to the Imperial Guard and Space Marines 300 on here. So things are going well so far for the Imperials, but will that continue? The Orcs have certainly got a lot of units on the field here that they're fielding. You can see Space Marines trying to make their way across the river now, countercharging the Orcs' attack. This is going to be great for the Space Marines. If they can establish a beachhead, that'll be nice. That'll keep the Imperial troops safe, allowing them to rain down their firepower bit by bit. On the center line, though, this is where it truly is going to kick off. This is where all the Dreadnoughts seem to have focused. So yeah, Blood Raven Dreadnoughts now pouring across this river. And bit by bit, it's also going to fill up with bodies, making it easier for the Orcs to traverse. Looking over this side, though, it looks like a couple of Space Marines taking up the mantle of defense here, not wanting to leave it entirely to the Guardsmen, which is kind of good because at the end of the day, they are just poor, lowly conscripts. But the Orcs seem to have a really nice foothold here, sending thousands of reinforcements across this section and still outflanking the Space Marine position. Hopefully the Imperial Guard over this side will have enough firepower to keep the Orcs at bay. Let's have a look at the other flank over this side, because it does look like the Orcs have found a little bit of a way across, though not much here. You can see a couple of them actually almost drowning to get across this river. They're that desperate for a fight here. But again, that's not allowing them to bring in massed amounts of reinforcements. The Imperial Guard, more than enough firepower on this side to keep them at bay, as well as a couple of Space Marines. Yeah, I think that's going to go absolutely fine for them. Meanwhile, the rest of the line, look at this. A foothold has been established by the Space Marines here, on a pile of Orcs, no less. Just building up the corpses of the Orcs here really allows them to get across. Look at this, though. The Space Marines really charging, cutting their way through that Orc front line. Orcs falling left and right here to the power of a chainsaw. But a couple of Meganobs there making their way to that front line should change things for the Space Marine. As well as that Orc Daka slowly building up in the background, laying down covering fire into the Assault Marines here. Assault Marines are going to start taking a little bit of punishment. Every single bullet chipping away at their armor slowly but surely here. But look at this. I mean, it's just a pile of Orc corpses beneath them. Oh, look at this. The Orcs, it looks like they've been held in place. Imperial Guard firepower was enough. And now they've got to take on the Assault Marines here, who've been holding this line really well. Actually managing to push forward as well, which is kind of insane. You can see it's a little bit weaker on this side, but again, we're building up Orc corpses underneath this river, which means if the Space Marines do falter here, which it looks like they might because they're getting a bit overwhelmed and surrounded like these chaps here, But yeah, eventually it looks like the Orcs actually might be able to build a path out of the corpses on this side, which will be really good for them, offer them a direct route into that conscript line. Now the conscripts, they're sort of weak. You know, they don't do a lot of damage, but when they're amassed to like 50,000 to 100,000 like here, it's still a lot of damage output per second. So ultimately, as long as a lot of the conscripts manage to survive the initial engagements here, they should be peachy. Look at this though, the Orcs now finding a way around that lake properly, bringing in a lot more reinforcements, and we have just got this tiny little squad of assault marines taking on the entire Orc flank here, which is kind of crazy. There's not many conscripts on this side of the field backing them up either. Most of the conscripts focused in the center lines here. Hopefully we can get some of this bolter fire from the Blood Ravens to focus over that side, but again, at the moment they're just blasting across the river valley here, taking hundreds of Orc lives as they do so. How are we getting on, Space Marines, on this side? Oh dear, the Assault Marines begin to falter, it doth seem. Yeah, look at this little group over this side. They pushed too far ahead here, out of the range of the conscript support by the looks of it, and they are starting to pay the price. Orcs slowly surrounding them here, chipping away at that health pool. Unfortunately for the Orcs, these guys have a gigantic health pool of about 80 to 100,000 HP. So yeah, they're definitely not weak units on the field here. The Orcs probably dealing about 100 damage a hit. Can two-hit a Guardsman, most Orcs can. So yeah, the Guardsmen themselves shouldn't be that much of a trouble should the Orcs manage to get through the Ceramite wall here. The chainsaws revving up, but yeah, look at this. Bit by bit, the Orcs are picking off the Orcs are picking off the Orcs. I mean, I guess they are in the back lines when they can't get to the fight quick enough. But the Orcs here picking off the Assault Marines one by one, creating these tiny little gaps. And look at this. The Assault Marines faltered on this side. The Orcs now using the corpses of their fallen comrades to push on through, to start to surround the Space Marine line over here, which is going to be awful for the conscripts. I mean, not to mention the fact that Storm Boy is now running right up to them, chopping them in half here with each blow. And this is where Imperial losses will start to mount. God, look at the Orcs pile here that's been made. That's the firepower there, helping out that one dude stood atop of them all. Meanwhile, the rest of the field seems to be going pretty well, though we need to keep an eye on this side. This side could get overwhelmed pretty dang quickly. And it looks like the Space Marines now getting surrounded over here, despite the firepower that is helping them out. It's clearly not helping out enough just yet. Come on, we need some more bolter fire over this side because there's practically none. There's a couple of bolter rounds hitting over here, but yeah, it looks like most of them are trying to focus across the river at the moment, supporting the Assault Marine action that has created this wonderful little foothold, yet none of the Imperials have dared to move into it. In fact, it looks like the Imperials are taking heavy losses here. Probably from that Orky Daka. I don't know if you can see. We've got this ridge of Orky Daka here. Oh, there's these puffs of smoke. That's where the shooters are. And they are laid it thick and fast into that Imperial line. Meanwhile, on the far flank over here, let's go have a look how we're getting on. So for now, the conscripts are managing to hold. They're starting to take losses simply because the Orcs can't get enough troops across the river yet. But should this Space Marine line falter, which it may well do because the Orcs now are starting to surround them, and that is one thing a Space Marine is not good at, deflecting hits directly from behind him. Yeah, it looks like the Orcs might break through that, and if they do, I mean, just look at that big group of juicy Guardsmen. They've all got their bodies are piling high, though, across our battlefield at the moment. Space Marines holding firm on this side. There's plenty of them in place, but it's these flanks. Oh, God, look at this. The Dreadnoughts here, just killing like 50-odd Orcs with each swing, just slamming the ground with them pneumatic fists. Although, look at this! The Orc assault on this side seems to be petering out a little bit. Not enough reinforcements now coming in. Seems like they sent a whole bunch around the outside of the lake, but the rest are content to try and take on the Marines, which basically have now established a new foothold over this side. So I don't know what quite happened there. It looks like these Assault Marines used to be over this side and have decided to come across and stop the Orcs from here. The Orcs, though, slowly but surely trying to ground down these... Oh, no! There it is! The breakthrough in the line. That is going to be devastating for the Space Marines. Yeah, look at that. Instantly surrounded and swarmed by Storm Boys, Knobs and Mega Knobs here. The shooters all lining up to declare their Daka. An absolute horrific, a cataclysmic breakthrough there for the Space Marines. And the Orcs now surging, though. I don't know if they've actually got a way to get across this river. Imperial Guard losses, though, starting to mount really rapidly as that Orc Dakar does its job. Let's go back over here to this flank. How are we holding out, chaps? Is the Space Marine line still intact? Barely. We've got a couple of Marines left holding this entire flank back. This is extremely worrying for the Imperial Guard troops, who've only got 36,000 troops remaining here against 950,000 Orcs. So yeah, that firepower really starts needing to make an account for itself now. You can see the bolts of fire, though, just lighting up this side of the hill. That's going to be killing so many Orcs here. Imperial Guard now, 800,000 kills under their belt, and that number is going up rapidly here. The Space Marine assault line can hold out quite a bit longer, though. Like I said, it's quite a thick wedge of assault marines that we've got over this side. So hopefully what will happen is the Orcs that broke through the Space Marine line on this side will now start to try and swing over here, rather than going for the Imperial Guard troops. Which, actually, kind of looks like they're trying to go for the Imperial Guard troops, and they're getting lit up on this side. No, actually, it might be the assault marines over here that they're trying to get to bit by bit. But in doing so, they're taking a hell of a beating at trying to get to that position. Although it's kind of odd, because, yeah, no, they're purposefully heading over here. Is there an assault marine here or something? No, there's just a massive pile of Orc corpses. Okay, well, you chaps build up that corpse bridge bit by bit, and let's see what happens as the surge now of Orcs comes from the far left flank, sweeping into that Space Marine line. And it actually looks like the Space Marines were starting to break through the Orc waves on this side. Look at this, reinforcements looking a little bit thin for the Orcs over this side. So yeah, it's probably a good job for the Orcs that they actually managed to break that Space Marine line in particular. Let's go back over to our flank, though. Have the Orcs managed to break through here? Yeah, it looks like most of the Space Marines now have fallen, at least the assault Marines here. We've got maybe one or two left alive. And I don't know how long they're going to survive as the Orcs now start to swarm Imperial positions. Them conscripts taking real heavy losses all of a sudden. Again, Dakar waiting on the other side here, laying down its covering fire into the Imperial Guard lines. And that's going to be dealing devastating damage. The Orcs shoot pretty quickly with that Dakar. More bullets a second, the better for them. I love how these Imperial Guardsmen, what are you doing, chaps? You're just submerging yourselves and drowning slowly in the process. So I think what's happening here over this side then, it looks like the Imperials are out of range of most of the Orcs. But my god, have the Space Marines made a damn good account for themselves over here. Rapidly approaching 1 million kills now for the Imperials. 725,000 Orcs left battling it out. You can see the Imperial Guard line over this side now really spreading out. So it looks like they've managed to deal with this flank pretty handedly. We've got a group of Space Marines over here plugging off that gap which the Orcs were using, which has probably allowed all of them Imperials to come right across here now and start shooting directly into the Horde, providing firepower for these few little assault Marines that are left on this side. Again, though, look at this. The Orcs really trying to build up that corpse bridge. Oh, we've got a couple of assault Marines submerged in the blood-drenched river at the moment. The Mushroom Horde making its way forward, slowly but surely. And is this going to be the death bell tolling here for the Imperial Guard? Though, look at this. It actually looks like they're starting to break this flank slowly but surely. Orc reinforcements looking a little bit light over here. Of the Imperial Guards, did the Space Marines, sorry, do enough damage here? Did the Orc advance to just be enough that the conscripts can now deal with them? You can see where the Orcs have been trying to forge a new river across here, a new bridge across here, and it's looking like it's going pretty well so far. How are our surrounded Marines doing? They're holding out to the last man. Oh, this is going to be a brutal fight over here. The Orcs now starting to surround them almost completely. Again, look at this firepower laying down into the Orcs advancing around the rear. The Space Marines know that they need to help out their brethren as much as possible here. 600,000 Orcs remain on the field, and the Imperials still hold the other side with all their firepower, which is great news for the Imperials, not so much for the Orcs. I've got to wonder what happens when we start to run out of Space Marines on that front line, because the Assault Marines have been distracting a heck of a lot of the Orc reinforcements. What happens when they start making a concerted effort to push across that river? That is going to be key here. Look at this. Them few assault marines taking the fight right to the orcs, pushed right across the river into their own territory, gaining a foothold on the other side of the river yet again. But here we go. I think this is going to be the break point for the orcs. Is this where they're going to try and get across the river? I mean, it makes sense. They've piled up enough corpses here already. And they're taking a lot of losses, so they need to make a decision now. How are our Space Marines doing over here? Yeah, that's around closing in on them slowly but surely now. The losses rapidly mounting as the orcs do this. So I think what happens then once this lot has gone is we're going to get this crazy surge across the center line. But the orcs are going to be storming into bolter fire. And that's going to be painful for them. But yeah, that flanking maneuver for the orcs here almost completely petered out now. Almost nothing left of it. The main reinforcements have got to be coming in from this portion of the line. And I don't think that's going to be enough to dislodge the Imperials and the Blood Ravens that are now using their corpses as cover. I mean, if no trench line exists, make one out of the corpses of your enemies. Simples. Oh my god. Yeah, Imperial firepower really doing its job here. Like I said, I'm interested to see what happens. Oh, this entire area just got cleaned out. Okay, so I think then that the orcs are either going to make a break for this part of the line over here, or they're going to try and get across at another point, which looks like it's going to be here. So it looks like the orcs are going to try and forge an entirely new bridge here, which is kind of insane considering they almost had one. In fact, looking at this, there's almost no orcs left here, 470,000 left on the field. And I think a lot of them may be stuck trying to path down from the top area over here. Yeah, look at this. This is going to be the bulk of the orc army now, which, yeah, has no way of getting across the river. This might be really good here for the Imperials. But things are starting to slow it down just a little bit here. So I'm just going to hit a very quick time-lapse camera here to see if the orcs can start building up that corpse bridge, and we'll be back in a second. Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, where things are indeed getting a little spicy here now for the Imperials. Only 8,000 of them remain on the field. You can see this line is getting more and more staggered here. The orcs slowly but surely punching their way through the defenders' line here. Now, it's got to be thanks to these knobs here. We've got a massive group of knobs that made their way across. And you can see the bridge that they've been building has grown in size and in height here. But if we look at the rest of the field as well, you can see that the orcs have made these little tendrils that are reaching out and distracting the bolter fire, which has allowed a lot of the orcs now to move up. You can see that it looks like the Space Marines on this side were finally defeated, and the orcs are now making their way back across the river. Luckily, we've got a load of Imperial Guardsmen over this side who are trying to provide some covering fire, but I just don't think there's going to be enough of them there to stop an entire orc advance all by themselves. Looks like a lot of the Dakar as well for the orcs now has also been taken out. There's nowhere near as much firepower coming out of the orc lines as there was previously. But the orcs still have 150,000 troops here, and it looks like most of them have been flung into this flank, trying to get across this little gap over here, which is really good because there's quite a few Blood Ravens over this side, so hopefully they should be able to hold this pretty nicely. Look at this. A couple of orcs chasing guardsmen through the desert over here. I mean, they're doing a good job. They're taking out their defenders bit by bit, but it looks like we're actually starting to get more of coherency here out to the orc army. They're starting to get their numbers up. They're massing the lads, and they're chopping at shall commence. There's some tasty Blood Ravens over here that they want to wear. And I mean, that literally, they want to wear the Blood Ravens armor. Actually, I'm surprised that isn't more of a thing in Warhammer, you know, where orcs have taken bits of dead Space Marines armor and stuck it on themselves. I'm surprised you don't see that more. I'm sure that probably does happen. But yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's a popular thing that happens. I wonder why that is. I guess it's because it doesn't look cool enough for the orcs, so they have to make it all spiky. But then, I suppose that's almost just chaos armor. But yeah, look, this is kind of interesting now. A lot of the orcs are starting to refocus their efforts. God, look at this corpse pile over here. So are the orcs actually crossing here? Yeah, it looks like the orcs are crossing at this point. They've still got a little while to go yet before the corpses build up enough for that to become an actual input area, a way that they can get across. Look at this. I love this, these lines where the orcs have just been making a straight run to the Space Marine line. The Space Marines have been lighting them up with bolter fire. And bolters are not to be messed around with. They do a lot of damage. Looks like a bit of Orc Dakar has actually made its way across the river as well. Kind of impressive. So they're providing point-blank covering fire here now for the rest of the orcs, who really are trying to amass their forces. But yeah, the Space Marines don't want that to happen. They know what happens when you get a large orky mass. It becomes very difficult to deal with. 2,000 defenders there remain. 75,000 attackers. This is going to come down to the wire. Simply because the orcs are still mainly stuck on the other side of the river here. So the Imperial Guardsmen are laying down lots of firepower. They are taking heavy losses though from the orcs that are making their way across. And if it's not from them, the Orc Dakar is certainly seeing them off pretty darn quickly. So it's really all going to come down to this center line here of Blood Ravens and their bolters, I think. This is going to be what stands between them and victory. The orcs though, look at this, relentless with their numbers here, just forcing everything into these tiny gaps to try and get their troops across. Meanwhile, the rest of them are taking a beating on the opposite side of the river here. This river has also expanded. I think, in case you hadn't noticed, the amount of blood that has poured into this river. Yeah, we've widened the river just a little bit. It's got a little bit deeper as well than it was before. So look at this now, all the orcs giving up on that way across and decided, no, this is the way over here. This is where they want to cross the river now, which is probably not good for them. Look at this, we've got so many of them deciding that that's the way to go. So it does look like all the Imperial Guardsmen over this side then pretty much been killed off by this orc flanking maneuver. It's done a really good job. Rest of the Imperials are up front, taking a beating from that Orky Dakar, trying to hold the line, stop the orcs from establishing a proper foothold over here. That bolter fire raining across the river though, taking out hundreds of orcs still. There's only 37,000 orcs left, so it's now or never for the orc lads. This line over here have been doing a real good job, point blank bolter fire, ensuring that the orcs do not break this flank. If the orcs had broken this flank, it would have been all over for the Imperials, I think. But as it stands, 600 remaining. And most of them are going to be Space Marines now, I think. I think most of the Imperial Guard have been wiped off the face of the planet here. And yet, this is the bulk of the Orc army. It's stuck on the other side of the river. Just look at the side of this mountain here. These hills and mountains are just littered with Orc corpses at the moment. Some of them piled very, very high. Yeah, I don't think the Orcs are actually going to get across the center. This could be GG for the orcs here, ladies and gentlemen. Not able to get their reinforcements in or across that river. And I think that is largely due to the amount of blood that has been spilt here today. With all that blood giving up the river somewhat, like I said, it's made it deeper and wider, which means the orcs have to use far more units to be able to bridge the gap here. Which is exactly what they've done on this side, but you can see the cost was heavy. Look at this mountain of orcs here, and it goes under the river as well. That's the thing to remember. There's probably a good, 20 to 30,000 dead orcs here to allow these boys to charge across. And this is the only point of entry, really, that the orcs ever managed to establish on this flank. It's like the best position that they've had to get across the river. So yeah, this has been a hard fight for the orcs. They were basically at a disadvantage from the start. Both sides, though, were set to attack. It's just that the Imperial Guard had more units that decided to hold the ground, whereas the Orcs, mainly a melee-based army in this game with the mods that we have available. So that forces them into that melee fight. So, yeah, they've had to cross that river. Whereas the Imperial Guard were just like, nah, we're just going to sit here and fire at you. Smart, using the river's natural defense there. And I think... yeah, this entire side of the field has now been cleansed of orcs. There's 17,000 left trying to get across this tiny gap into the Space Marine line, and I don't think this is going to go well for them at all, unfortunately. Yeah. Oh, looks like they managed to take out these ones over this side, though. So there's just, you know, the remaining 400 bolters to deal with. And I don't think they're going to do that, considering most of the bolt rounds here are killing orcs almost instantly and deal a little bit of splash damage because, you know, highly explosive rounds. Essentially rocket-propelled grenades with fragmentation inside of them. They are very, very deadly here. And they're very effective against clusters of units. And the orcs, unfortunately, have done nothing but cluster up the entire game. 12,000 orcs, 380 space marines. What's going to happen here, ladies and gents? Well, we're going to time-lapse it because, yeah, this is just going to be a slow grind of orc death, I think. We'll be back in a second. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. The orcs actually made a damn good account of themselves there, taking these space marines down just to 240 remaining. And yeah, unfortunately, the orcs have just been decimated. The corpses litter the entire battlefield. And I think, ladies and gents, we could wrap this one up here. That was a really cool fight. That was really nice to watch. Unfortunately, I was hoping that the orcs had forged these massive corpse bridges to get across, but no, Space Marines decided to take the fight to the enemy here. So, yeah, unfortunately, that didn't happen. Maybe I'll run this again with Tyranids or something like that, but we'll have to see. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, as always, until next time, I do hope you had a blast. I know I did. Please do comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Don't forget to check out Project 40K if you're interested in metal music. And until next time, peace.